welcome to For the Love of Nature, a podcast where we tell you everything you need to know about nature and probably more than you wanted to know. I'm Fawks, Lapole.
And I'm Katy Holloway, and today we have our very first guest on our show, Kate Taylor. Say hi, Kate.
Hi, everybody.
Hello. So, we're also trying something a little new today. For those that would like to back us on Patreon, we are now providing the visual camera-ish whole section too, so extra incentive to
want to
also
see what our ridiculous actions and motions that we do during it, because we definitely do gestures
and facial expressions, and yeah, so it's gonna be really funny. But if we have any hiccups or anything, it's because I downloaded this 30 minutes ago. It seems amazing, so we'll see how it works. But I'm excited. And poor Kate is putting up with all of our pre-show shenanigans. So thank you, Kate, already for putting up with this.
Of course, I'll be your guinea pig.
Yay! I'm really excited. All right, Laura, do you want to go kind of just over, I guess, last week's episode? And last week was Pollinator Week?
Yeah, so this will be coming out the week after Pollinator Week.
Yep.
But we're actually recording this during Pollinator Week.
Woohoo!
In general, our last episode was all about kind of underrated pollinators. Hopefully you listened to that one. And it was during Pollinator Week. What is Pollinator Week? It is an internationally celebrated week that just celebrates pollinators. It started about 14 years ago in the United States.
Wait, pause. How did you know that it started 14 years ago? Did you just do a program on this for work?
No, I Googled it.
Okay, because I was like, what? I know you know a lot of random things, but I was like...
Yeah, no, that would be totally random. No, this is...
Okay.
It's managed by Pollinator Partnership.
Okay.
And the Senate had unanimous approval, giving National Pollinator Week a thing, and then it's kind of grown from National Pollinator Week into just Pollinator Week because people around the world are celebrating pollinators. We've really, it seems like recently, or at least in the last decade, have really recognized the importance of pollinators just in time as they're starting to disappear, which is great that we have Kate on today because she's going to talk about conservation.
I also just had to do some math on my calculator that I was like, 14 years ago, that seems like forever. That was when I graduated high school. So I was like, man, 14 years ago, I was like, clearly that has to be like at least in the early 2000s. I was like, wait, it's 2021. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's weird to think about that.
I don't feel old, but whenever we throw out numbers like that, I'm like, oh man, I'm too old.
Well, right, because us millennials, like our marker is 2000.
Right?
So
yes.
2000 doesn't seem that long ago.
No.
But it's been 21 years.
I just don't pay attention to the numbers anymore.
Yeah.
In fact,
everything started in 2000.
And through this past year, we can't.
Yes,
like, you can't,
exactly.
like, no time. Absolutely no concept of time. It's been gone. Alrighty, so we're going to skip nature news today because we really do want to talk to Kate and get into the interview part of it because we're really excited. So, again, this is Kate Taylor. She's an endangered species biologist working for the Oklahoma Department of Transportation Natural Resource Program. Kate's lived and worked in Oklahoma City for the last 15 years, so just about the same time that this has started. There we go.
I graduated a year before you.
She grew up in a small town in southwestern Oklahoma with a love for nature and all things outdoors. Woohoo! She studied biology. Yeah, right. She studied biology at the University of Central Oklahoma. Her love for monarch butterflies started when her kindergarten class raised caterpillars, and now that is part of her career.
Yay!
Awesome.
That's very wholesome. We never did the monarch caterpillar thing. We did praying mantises instead.
Oh, that would be cool. I've never done that.
It's really metal.
Yeah. Kate went to a normal kindergarten.
Yeah, meanwhile, our insects are just
southwestern Oklahoma. I mean.
Goodness. All right, Kate, are you ready?
I am ready.
So we have a list of questions that we've kind of gone over with Kate ahead of time just to give her a heads up so we didn't throw anything completely crazy in here. So we're just going to go through it like an interview style. And if you guys have any... What?
I said hot seat.
Hot seat. Yeah, that's what we just need, a light shining down and interrogation about butterflies. But if you guys are listening and you have any questions, please do not hesitate to reach out, and then we can get those questions to Kate, and then we can add that on social media. So that would be a lot of fun too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Alrighty. Question number 1. So, Kate, what is your current job? And I know I kind of said, where do you work? But go ahead and give a little bit more of that.
Okay. So, yeah, like you said, I'm an endangered species biologist. I work for the Oklahoma Department of Transportation in the Natural Resource Department. I work with protected and endangered species like bats, eagles, pollinators, things like that.
Bats!
Yes.
Yes. That was
we
my
haven't got
underrated.
To do much because of COVID yet.
Yeah, right. That was
that
was my underrated pollinator last week.
I know. I was
bats.
excited when you said that.
See, yeah, bats are good species.
Yeah, right now we're focused on the monarch conservation in the transportation corridors or on roadsides. So that's the season that we're in right now. Monarch migration in Oklahoma is the spring and the fall. So perfect timing right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
I feel like that most people would not think Department of Transportation endangered species biologist. Like I know because but I think most people would be like, "What? How are road people connected to biologists?"
Yeah, I get that question a lot.
The road people. How are the road people connected to biologists? Yeah.
So everybody uses roads. If you don't, I don't know, but most people use roads and infrastructure. So construction needs to happen because we use them all the time. So there is always a chance that the environment's going to be impacted whenever those construction projects are happening.
Makes sense.
So those projects have to be done in compliance with certain laws, like the Clean Water Act, the Bald and Golden Eagle Act, Endangered Species Act, things like that. And the impacts from those projects have to be measured and accounted for and sometimes avoided or mitigated, made up for elsewhere, those kinds of things. So as a biologist, we work with design, we work with construction, we work with all the aspects of it just to help them stay within compliance. We help with getting permits. We do monitoring in certain areas, surveys before, construction starts, things like that. For example, like in the winter, we did a lot of eagle surveys. So if we had a transportation, it was really cool.
Yeah.
So if we have a construction project that's going to happen or is happening and it's eagle nesting season, we have to go out and check and make sure that an eagle hasn't built its nest on top of right over a bridge that they're going to be redoing and that we're going to be affecting those eagles with our construction. And if there is, then we pass it on to our lead eagle biologist, and he will, work with U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, things like that. But sometimes we have to go out and monitor. They have to go by certain rules. The construction has to stay outside of a certain footprint, different rules and things like that, just to make sense or to make it to where the nesting isn't impacted.
So you get a lot of, sorry, go ahead, Katy.
No, I was just going to say, I was going to say that I think the reason why Laura and I both know that this is a job is because we've looked for jobs in the past, and this is frequently one that comes up.
Yes.
You do see it as a biologist coming up. So you were talking a little bit about the law and all that stuff. And I know, and at least because Laura and I both went to undergrad together, we in undergrad didn't go into law. Was a lot of that stuff just stuff you learned on the job? Once you started, did you learn all of that?
I learned about it probably as much as you guys did, in school. And then, yes, it's definitely which laws pertain to what and that kind of thing. Because, those laws are huge. So
yeah, they're ginormous.
Specific to transportation projects or bridge projects or whatever. So I've learned definitely a lot more about them since starting this.
That's cool.
Yeah. I was going to ask, do you were talking about all the construction people that you work with. Is it usually a positive, they're going along with it, it's all working out, or do you get some pushback?
It depends. Construction, our job is to work with them. So
Mm-hmm.
construction and environmental compliance shouldn't be mutually exclusive.
Right.
We should be able to work together, and that's kind of our job, is to help the transportation department get their work done without negatively impacting the environment. And we also don't want to be out of compliance or anything like that, because that can delay projects, and those are usually time sensitive, things like that. So we've had really good, help and positive reactions out of it for the most part.
Cool.
Because everybody's got the same goal.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That helps, I'm sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like you guys are all on the same team since you're in the same department.
Right. And we're here to help. So
yeah, that's awesome. So what does a typical day on the job look like for you?
It definitely depends on the season and the species, I guess, that you're working on. There's not really any typical days. Fall and winter, yes, it's really great.
That's what I like about my job too.
Yes, it's so awesome. Fall and winter, we focused on, like I said, on bald eagle surveys. So we'd go out and check for the bald eagle nest, monitor bald eagles, things like that. Spring and summer, I've spent a lot of time focusing on searching for suitable habitat in roadsides for pollinators. So we go out and we camp milkweed stems or monarch eggs, look for caterpillars, look at the nectar resources and stuff like that, kind of see if there's any management suggestions in certain areas that we would be able to pass on to our maintenance divisions and things like that.
I bet you get wickedly tan out there.
My face does.
Yeah, right.
But I got a really awesome Apple Watch tan
that
I can't seem to get rid of. But other than that,
it's just embedded on your wrist forever.
Exactly. But yeah, we do bats and migratory birds, our summer species as well, and then water and wetlands assessments in transportation area.
That's so fun.
Areas too.
That's so fun. Laura and I are just going to quit our jobs after. No. We both have coworkers that listen to this, so we are not quitting our jobs.
Yeah.
So, all right. So, now I know probably working for the transportation department isn't what you've always wanted to do, but kind of like this job, is this something you've always wanted to do, or how did you end up working with Butterfly's Department of Transportation in general?
So I grew up hiking and camping and being outside and all of that. So it was pretty natural fit, like field work was at least. I didn't know that I wanted to do this because I didn't really know it was an option.
Yeah.
But
so many jobs in this field are like that.
Yes, there's so many. It's so crazy. But yeah, when I was in college, I took a class called Oklahoma Field Biology, and it was awesome because we got to go out and each week we switched. We did like botany one week, and then we did insects and birds, and the first like couple days of the week would be a lecture, and then the rest of the week was out in the field. So we got to do all of that. And that's kind of what I do now as my job. Yeah. So once I got in that class, I was like, oh, I would love to do field work someday. But I just lucked out that I kind of got to do all of it. We actually netted for bats in that class too, which was cool. So,
cool.
Yeah. It sounds like a good class. And I think that's something that's so valuable for students is to you have to, at least in this field, I really think you have to experience many different types of positions before you're like, because you might think you want to work in a lab until you work in a lab, or you might think you want to be in the field until you're actually in the field.
Until you're sunburnt and covered in ticks.
Which Laura and I have both been there. Our last job at the zoo when we worked together, we would go out into the field for, I don't remember what it was. It was a piece of property. And every time we would go there, we would both come back covered in
so many ticks.
So many ticks.
It happens. It's
so horrible.
It's totally worth it to me, but I know that that's not really to everybody else. So
I could do without the ticks.
I could do without the ticks.
Yeah.
Well, if I have a preference.
Yes.
Excuse me, if you could just stay off of me today.
Right.
I would appreciate it.
Just today. All right, so then could you tell us, we talked a little bit about your job, but could you tell us a little bit then about the monarch and maybe like a little natural history or some fun facts that you know about the monarch?
Mm-hmm. So the North American monarch is kind of iconic. I think everybody, well, for the most part, most people can recognize it. It's known for, its appearance, the bright orange and black, and then it's also known for its really long migration. There are two populations. I think you guys touched on this in the Creepy Crawly episode, but
a little bit.
Yeah.
But that was totally our very Googled stuff because we both like again have a very basic understanding of.
Well,
it,
right, because I feel like the monarchs are like the pandas of the pollinator world.
Yes.
It's like save the monarch,
I
and so
love
everyone
that.
knows
I'm
like
gonna
a
use
little.
that.
Yeah. But that's why we were excited to have you on because then we can hear it from an expert.
Oh,
More
man.
monarch
Pressure.
information. Yeah. So explain away.
So the eastern overwinters in Mexico and the western overwinters in California. So
Which I don't know why I always thought. I think because of the iconic pictures in Mexico that I just assumed they all go to Mexico.
And like us East Coast people never think about West Coast.
No,
things.
no, they don't exist. It doesn't exist.
So yeah, the western population has declined 99.9% in the past 2 decades.
Yeah.
And
Dang.
it's not good.
I didn't know it was that crazy over there.
Yeah, it's not looking great. The eastern has declined 80% in the past 2 decades. Those are both estimations, but that's both not great. But there's a lot that plays into that, and that's kind of why we're working in conservation and why so many other industries and individuals and organizations are doing so right now.
Yeah.
Which is the perfect leeway into the next question was what was the cause of the decline, or what is a cause of the decline? Is it just development, or like what are some of the factors? Because I know there, like you said, there is a lot that goes into it, but I know whenever Kate and I were talking about answering these questions and prepping, Kate sent me some just general information so I can make some questions and stuff. But I same thing as Laura, I had no idea that the Western population is pretty much gone. I had no idea. So is it just development that's factoring into it, or what else is happening there?
It's a lot of habitat loss. Lack of milkweed is huge because milkweed's the only plant that monarchs will lay their eggs on. It's the only plant that the monarch.
Specialists.
I know,
right?
I know. It's a bad choice. Bad choice. But that's what they do. So the lack of milkweed's really like not helping anything. Pesticide and herbicide use, climate change, obviously they're having to live through major weather events and things like that they normally wouldn't. Disease, parasites, they got a lot going going against them pretty much.
I was like, geez, I feel like this is another case where they were not adapted correctly, but at the same time, like butterflies don't know how much we rely on them. So we're like, yes, they're dying. They realize, but in their little minds, they're just like, oh, I can't really find a mate this year. Oh, I can't find milkweed. But we're all like, holy crap, like it's going to destroy our whole world if we don't have enough pollinators. And they just have no idea. And
if we don't, if they continue to decline like this, they're never going to get the chance to adapt to certain things. So they've got an estimated 10% survival rate from caterpillar to adulthood. So that's pretty crazy to think about.
And they even try so hard to make that like they're poisonous.
I know, it's crazy.
What else can a poor caterpillar do? I wonder, do you know, actually, I have no idea if you know this, but do you know if they're more successful than other types of butterflies?
Oh, I have no idea. That's a really good question.
Interesting.
We got to find out and look at
it. I'll have to Google that because that's a really good question. I'm not sure.
Yeah, only just because I'm thinking because they're poisonous, does that give them any advantage or nope? Same
or nothing at all. Nothing at all.
I mean, who knows? I know that they'll make things sick, but I don't know if that means that they won't eat them.
Right.
Yeah.
How many birds learn?
Right.
Let's remember we're talking about birds here for a second.
Or just think about, I mean, like people with their spicy foods, like it hurts, but you're gonna eat it anyway.
Oh, and I'm one of those people. Like
I'd be the bird that would learn.
Yeah, no, I don't. But I love spicy food.
I do too.
And I can take it and I can tolerate it. And my husband's philosophy is you shouldn't eat food that can hurt you.
Agreed.
And I am all for it. Like I
disagree with him.
Yeah, right.
Me and Carl are on the same page.
I would rather have my sinuses cleaned out and enjoying a good meal than with a good taste than not. I don't know. I just really like spicy food. My stomach will probably come back to haunt me on that one day. But until that point, I love spicy food.
I do too. I'm with you.
Now I'm thinking, is it just poisonous, so it's just gross, or does it?
Yeah, I'm
what
sure
does
it
it
just tastes
taste
bad.
like? Okay,
It's probably just
because now I'm
bad.
like, what do they taste like?
Probably.
I mean,
not
you could
good.
eat one. But
Listen, we've been through this. I've had an earthworm, and if it
know.
tastes anything like an earthworm, I am not going for
I
it.
imagine they'd be so squishy and juicy. It'd be
Ugh.
so. I don't want to eat a caterpillar if I know.
No, I don't either. I think it would make you sick.
I
It
think
would
so too.
have to.
Yeah.
I swear, I probably should have looked into like, does an earthworm make you sick? And I just ate it, and I didn't look back. I probably should
I'm
have.
sure it's where the earthworm lives. Like, what kind of soil is it living
True.
in? Like,
True.
At least
Well,
you
this
can
one-
hopefully get one from like a toxic dump, and
We got it. I don't remember, but I'm almost sure the lady got it from like a feeder, like a pet store, like a feeder earthworm kind of thing.
Hit or
I
miss,
don't-
I guess probably then.
Yeah, I was like probably pumped it full of steroids or something. So
Anyway,
yeah, I did. So this one wasn't on the questions, but I do know. So you mentioned like milkweed, and I know there's a lot of like there's like the butterfly tagging program. I don't remember who really runs that though. And then there's the milkweed. So do you guys do anything with those programs, or just kind of like promote it? That's the word I'm looking for. Do you just sort of promote it whenever you're out and about?
So we have done tagging. So we actually before COVID, at ODOT, we set up and we raised caterpillars in our lobby so that we could get kind of like
cool
people on board with it.
Yeah.
And then we tagged those butterflies as well. I've actually got a caterpillar and a chrysalis on my desk right now that I will hopefully be able to tag. So I'm just doing that at home though. My husband thinks I'm crazy.
Just like, please tell me it has a name. Please
It
tell me it
doesn't.
Ah.
But it should.
Yeah, but maybe she's worried, like, if she names it, what if it comes back and, like, what if it can't be released?
Well, I'm just worried that maybe it won't make it, so I can't name it.
Remember, though, that's what when we talked about that. So Josh, our artist that does a lot of art for us, whenever I was doing the research for the butterfly one, he was saying that oftentimes when people raise monarchs, they can become pets if they're not releasable. So there you go. If you can't release it, he can.
I don't know how they live.
Hang on out on your desk
It'd be hard
forever.
to take care of.
I guess you'd have to get it like a nectarine resource and put it in its cage all the time, and hopefully it would take that.
It needs a name, Kate.
I'll give it a name. What should we name it?
What was I going to ask? Oh, milkweed. And for anyone listening, there are many types of milkweed out there. Do they prefer specific types?
So we've got 26 different types here in Oklahoma.
Whoa!
So I know that there are a lot more than that. So I'm sure Texas and all the other states, they've got completely different ones than what we've got. I don't think that they prefer it unless that they've got like a smorgasbord in front of them. And then there's ones that I've noticed that they prefer, but I think that's just because it's there.
So as long as it's in the milkweed family, it should be okay.
Right.
Okay,
and there's definitely, there's different places like, well, I think we're going to get into it in a little bit, but there's a lot of different resources that you can go to. You can order milkweed. A lot of the nurseries around here are starting to carry a lot more natives and native milkweeds because you can plant those in your yard.
Yeah.
So I highly recommend if you're going to raise caterpillars indoors, you need some sort of milkweed because they will go through a whole plant in a day. It's crazy.
Yeah. We have teachers that come and ask if they can pick some from the nature center because they're running out.
Yep. And they do.
We're like,
they go through it.
Yeah. Oh, goodness. So then speaking of partnering, what other organizations or other projects do you work with other organizations on other projects besides transportation corridors?
Mm-hmm. So like last night we did an event. It was kind of like a public outreach event where we worked. Okies for Monarchs is who set it up, but it was the kickoff to Pollinator Week. And they had
Okies, Oklahoma.
Yeah,
I was
Okies.
like, Okies.
Oklahoma.
Yeah.
That one's local, but
took me a second.
Yeah, and then we've got Monarch Joint Venture. That's a really good resource for anybody who's interested in getting involved.
I've heard of that one.
Yeah, they've got tons of stuff on their website. If you're an individual, if you're, a school, anything, any kind of organization, you can find resources there, and they'll kind of point you in the right direction. Quail and Pheasants Forever. We actually work with Oklahoma State University on some mowing and herbicide research right now for
that's
our
cool.
roadsides.
Yeah.
So, and then Monarch Watch is another one where people, when you see monarchs or monarch caterpillars or eggs or, whatever it is on the landscape, you can actually go and report that. And it helps us scientists because we can pull all of that data.
That's really cool. Yeah.
Yeah. So you must be
Citizen
working with
science.
a lot of organizations too, because you're working with like anybody who works with bald eagles. So you must be working with like, what, U.S. Fish and Wildlife and a whole bunch of other people.
Right.
Teamwork makes the dream work.
A lot easier, that's for sure.
Yeah, definitely. So beyond Save the Monarchs, what does monarch conservation mean?
So there's different stakeholders, kind of like what we talked about all over the United States. There's different industries like transportation, energy, there's local and volunteer organizations, there's individuals. And I think everybody's kind of focusing on how to manage for more quantity on top of better quality habitat for the monarchs.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
Because that's something that they're really going to need in order to survive.
Yeah.
Does one seem more important than the other, quality or quantity?
I think that it's both. Really.
Balance,
Yeah, it's balanced, because if it's not quality, I mean, it might provide some of the resources, but it might not provide all. There might be milkweed, but there's not nectarine, and they need both. So all of those things also help other pollinators as well. So
that's awesome.
Lots of bugs with one plant.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
it's awesome. Yeah, it's awesome, except for their own stupidity. I know Laura and I remember whenever we went to that butterfly thing a while ago, and there was there was a company in Maryland, oddly enough, and they were like cleaning the power lines, and they were actually,
it was the right of way people.
That's
so
what
like
it
the
was.
right of ways were working with conservation.
Yep.
And like like insect friendly herbicides rather than using pesticides, and it was fascinating.
And letting so all too often, like on the roadsides and then under power lines, like large power lines, they would just clear cut all of that
and spray
it to keep it it down, to keep it dead. And so this company was going around and teaching people, like, listen, there's other ways to do this. Like, you don't need to clear it. And so using it smart. So yes, you can still have that visual if you need it, looking up the power lines, whatever, but we can plant things here that are useful. Yeah. That helps everybody. So yeah, that's really cool. And I feel like, I don't know, maybe it is just because people are starting to become a little bit more sustainably
I definitely
aware.
think it's catching on. Yeah, like even here in Maryland, for sure. There are like pollinator corridors in the median and things like that.
Yeah.
It's more and more. Although, like, you'll still see like vast tracts of daffodils or something that.
Right.
But a lot of it seems like they're trying to leave it somewhat natural.
Yeah. Trying anyway. For effort.
Right. Working towards it, for sure.
Yes. And that's why we have people like you.
We try. But yeah, there's, like you were saying, reducing mowing, limiting your pesticide and herbicide use, managing your vegetation to promote like natives is actually going to help. You won't have to mow it as much if it's native vegetation.
Or water it as much.
Right.
Like,
dude, I could go on and on about natives forever.
I know.
Yeah.
Those are all best practices that we're trying to implement in certain areas throughout the state. And another thing, we're trying to promote, the public awareness of that, because I think that across everywhere, United States everywhere, we have kind of this lawn mentality of everything needs to look like a golf course.
Yep.
And it's not really the best thing for any of us.
No.
So if we can get that kind of changed over, we're working on putting signs up and doing different public outreach, like what we did last night, where we can let the public know, hey, this is why it's a little bit taller than, a golf course would be.
Yeah.
and it's
Yeah.
helping it's
Yeah,
helping
right.
pollinators and things like that.
Not an ecological wasteland.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's not
I know we
all
just
one
had-
monoculture.
One
Yeah,
of the
right.
one of the counties here in Maryland just passed a law allowing what's the HOAs, the homeowner associations.
Mhm. That's
you know,
what
they
we
can
have.
be real strict.
They are.
So one of the
And
one
we
of the
pay to live here.
I know.
one of the counties in Maryland just passed the law that the HOA cannot prohibit you from having a native plant garden.
Oh,
Awesome.
nice.
Yeah, because I guess there was a lot of pushback.
Yeah.
You can, because even, I mean, I can plant native plants, but like I can't have my whole front yard
Right.
covered. You know what I mean? It can't look like a wild Texas prairie.
Right.
You know, it has to, you know, I can have native plants in the flower bed. And so like I could put milkweed, you know, in the front
Mhm.
and
I
stuff
think
like
this
that.
was
but-
allowing like you to have like part of your backyard like untouched and things
Yeah.
like that. Whereas before it was like you have to cut it a certain length and you know like
yeah, I
stuff
wonder
like
if there's any intentionality behind that, or if people just take advantage of it and are like, you know what, I just don't feel like mowing.
I'm
ever
sure the
again."
person
I'm
who
sure that there are people.
spearheaded it. I'm sure the
Yeah.
person who spearheaded it was intentional, but I'm sure a lot of other people were like, yeah,
Let's
Yeah.
do it.
it's
I mean,
really
whatever
big.
works.
Yeah.
Native species are a really big thing around here where I live. Their nurseries are starting to provide more, like you were saying, Kate, and things
Mhm.
like that. It's just a matter of like, and native plant sales. Oh my gosh,
Yes.
like packed, gone
Yeah,
within
definitely.
hours.
Yeah, that's how it is here.
People
And
are
that's
crazy
awesome,
about it.
because more
Yeah.
people are going to do that as the demand goes up. So
yes, and
Yes.
it'll push nurseries to stop selling things that are going to be like invasive species one
Mhm.
day,
Well,
or you know.
and water hogs, because I know that's the big thing, like in Texas, because we are a drought state, and so we
True.
constantly tell people, like, if you don't want a $300 water bill, plant natives. Like, you
Yep.
save money, it helps the
Dang, I never
environment,
thought
it
about
helps.
that.
Yeah, it helps pollinators, and you don't constantly have to irrigate it. You don't have to like get native. I mean, it's Texas, so the number of native grasses that look nice, you know, are very maybe not, but it's very few and far between. But planting natives for where you live, it has benefits besides just the wildlife. I mean, it does have economic benefits to you as well.
Right.
Yeah, I did a program on native plants recently to a senior citizen group, and they all were like, "Wow, why didn't we know this 30 years ago?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Because if we did, we wouldn't have planted our yards this way." And I
Yeah.
was like, "I don't know, at least you know now."
Yeah, right.
Go rip your yards up.
Get out there, Grandma. Go dig out your yard. Go switch it up.
No, it's
So-
so true though.
It is. It really is. But it is nice to see that there's starting to be a change and that people are starting to flood these plants, like the native plant sales. And so it's a good
Mhm.
change. Hopefully it'll
Yeah.
continue to trend that way then.
Yes.
And I think that leads us into kind of our next question.
So I know we talked a little bit about laws earlier, but are there any current laws or anything being done to protect monarchs?
Yeah, so in 2015, there was a presidential memorandum put into place. That's a big word. Put into place to promote pollinators, such as like butterflies, bees, that kind of thing. So that was, national. And then in 2016, the Monarch Highway was established, which is a partnership between several states, including Oklahoma, and it runs along Interstate 35. And all these states have agreed to provide habitat and conservation efforts promoting the species.
That's cool.
So,
Is it east
yeah.
to west or north to south? I
North
never
to
remember.
south. So it's
Yeah,
right
it's north to
along the
south.
central flyway for their migration.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Cool.
So for those of you who don't know, listeners, I-35, because I do live in Texas, and 35 comes through DFW here, but it is an interstate, like we said, that runs north to south from Texas all the way to Minnesota.
Mhm.
Wow.
So it's a pretty big highway.
Right.
Gotcha.
So are all those states involved, Kate? Do you know, or which?
So
ones?
it's Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas, Missouri, Iowa, and Minnesota. So
that
all
is a
six-
lot of flat states to
Yes.
drive through.
Or to
Oh
fly
my
through.
gosh.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
But yeah, there's all of those states are together. So they joined to improve habitat for pollinators and to engage the public in those efforts. So it's put in place to bring awareness to the monarchs and to the other pollinators that use that corridor for migration, and then also just as resources.
That's
That's
awesome.
really neat. So, but what about the I-35 corridor makes it a good location for it? Like, is it just like historically, was there food there, or like why I-35? Because like now it's there, but was there something almost like the chicken or the egg?
Right.
Did the pollinators come before the road, or did the road, vice versa?
That's a good question. I think from what I understand, it's the central to the migration. So that's
Okay.
been the migration corridor all along. It just so happens that runs through
There's
it.
a highway.
Yeah, and you don't really think about the side of a highway as being a good area for pollinators, but there's actually over 17 million acres of roadsides in the US alone. So when you look at habitat loss and possibility for habitat, especially in places like Oklahoma, Texas, I'm sure is the same, where it's native. So it's already growing there. It's just managing for it versus mowing it all down.
And I would say, go ahead. I was gonna say that was one of my favorite things about, because I'm not native to Texas. Go Pittsburgh. But that was one of my favorite things about moving here is the amount of wildflowers that Texas has is insane, and spring in Texas is amazing, and it is to just drive around because it's just the roadside's just covered with wildflowers galore. It's crazy. It's definitely one of my favorite times of year here.
I was just thinking that, although it seems hostile, I was just thinking if I were a butterfly, living beside a highway would be pretty sweet. You just hold on until a semi comes by and then just ride that tailwind.
Right.
Just get
get spun everywhere.
Adrenaline junkie butterflies. They love the roadsides.
That's why they all still on I-35.
I wonder if, sometimes like bird migration tends to follow landmarks when they go south, and then when they go north, it's following winds. I wonder if butterflies, it's just mostly wind.
Ooh.
Yeah, it very well could be. And I know that there's been times in Oklahoma that we'll start to see sightings, and then we'll have like a big cold front come through and we won't see any more sightings. And so I think that they get blown through places, it's got to play into it for sure.
Yeah, because I'm just thinking, not that I'm that familiar with the Midwest, or whatever you guys are. Are you still Midwest?
Texas is its own country,
West?
I swear.
Are you the West? Swear. Are you the Midwest? I don't know.
Anyway. The plains, the Central Plains.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then, like, landmark, it's not like they're following mountains.
I can promise you there's nothing
for
here. There's nothing.
Just the wind.
Texas is a gorgeous state, but you can, from at least east to west, from DFW to El Paso is over 9 hours. So it's got to be at least 12 hours plus wide just driving. And mind you, in Texas, you drive 85 miles plus an hour. Yeah. So you cruise. So, I mean, there's nothing. There is nothing. So even the same way when you go north and south.
It's a big place.
I mean, yeah, but unless you're hitting, city to city, that's about all you're going to be seeing. And I mean, I know like Kansas and stuff, there's not a whole lot of visual landmarks to be seeing.
Some kind of wind pattern thing going on.
Interesting. I didn't think about it that way. Well, Kate, ask and get back to us, because that would be interesting. Yeah, that'd be interesting.
Yeah, I would love to know that too. If it's
Walk into work.
We're just coming up with a list of questions for you to ask when you get back. Just success rates of the caterpillars. Find out.
I need to know.
What do caterpillars taste like? These are things I must know. A whole list of random questions when you walk into work first thing in the morning. What does a caterpillar taste like?
I'm definitely taking all of these back with me.
The wind one is interesting though, because other animals, like Laura said, I mean, they do migrate based on a variety of means, and it's both visual and not like developmental, but they're adapted. Like their bodies are adapted to that. So I wonder what it is for butterflies. Well, for that corridor, then, have you noticed any cool or monumental outcomes from that implementation of like the highway itself? Besides, like, have you seen a population growth or just people being intentional?
Is 5 years too early, or are you starting to see stuff already?
So ODOT started a beautification program years ago, like long before the Monarch Highway, long before any of this.
Go Oklahoma.
Yeah. I think we're trying to follow Texas.
Yeah.
No, I think it's been a long time ago. And they plant wildflower plots, and then they're managing those areas for the native vegetation. And then in 2016, the Monarch Highway was put into place. And funny story, my dad was actually the state maintenance engineer at ODOT at that point.
Oh, fun.
Yeah, he was one of the ones that helped sign on to the Monarch Highway, and then
that's awesome.
Help implement some of the mowing regimens and the reduced mowing practices in certain areas.
So that's how Kate got her job.
Kind of.
Right.
I
would have played that card too. If I went out of college and my dad was in it, I would have been like, Dad, hook me up. No shame. No shame.
I totally worked in a whole bunch of different areas before this. And then he retired, and he says that they just traded up for the newer model. So he retired, and I started 2 weeks later.
That's so funny. That's funny. But that's awesome though, that a legacy is carrying on, and that you got to watch your dad do that. Yeah, that's awesome. That's really
Taylors are saving the Monarchs one member at a time.
Yeah. He's a Mirth, but yes, definitely.
Yeah, Mirth. Right, Mr. Mary. That's awesome.
Yeah, so he helped implement that. And even in the 5 years since they've been doing that with the beautification program, we had these plots that were beautiful wildflower plots, and already the seed bed had milkweed and things in it. And with the implementations of the mowing regimen and the herbicide changes, it's connected those areas. So there's a lot more of a continuous habitat.
Oh, fantastic.
Than bits and pieces.
And that's good for everything, I'm sure.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, definitely. That's fantastic. So,
because at least like butterflies could fly from place to place, but all the little ground guys would have been stuck in their little islands.
Exactly.
At least it would have been a beautiful island, flowers, and
I suppose. True.
Yeah. At least until you get hit by a car or something. So, in prepping for this episode, Kate, you sent me a really interesting website called the Monarch Joint Venture, which you mentioned earlier. So, and again, you did mention it earlier, but could you tell us a little more about that? And just to give listeners an idea what it is, you can go to monarchjointventure.org.
Mm-hmm. So Monarch Joint Venture is a nonprofit, and they've brought together different partners and industries basically to collaborate on monarch conservation efforts. So they've got local conservation groups, businesses, state and federal agencies, individuals, academic programs, different stuff like that. And they brought all of us together so that we can share that information, and people don't have to start from scratch, basically.
Cool.
So every year they put out a report showing like the latest science and then suggestions for best practices and things like that. So it's, if one state has kind of a breakthrough, then they share it with everybody so that we can all kind of be on the same page.
That's fantastic.
That makes collaboration much easier.
Right.
It really does. Yeah, it really does. Alrighty. A few more questions here. If a listener is interested in a career like this, what advice would you give them?
I would say find people who can help you. But I think more than anything, like I said, I actually didn't start out this way. I did a whole bunch of other things before I got into this job. And I had kind of a hard time getting my foot in the door because I didn't have a ton of experience straight out of college. Mm-hmm. So I think my suggestion would be to get involved beforehand. You just volunteer, like join a local group, because you'll meet people through that can help you kind of figure out what it is that you're wanting to do, or you may just have some fun doing it. There's a ton of environmental work to be done. So all help is welcomed, and you'll meet some awesome people doing that kind of stuff.
Citizen science, man.
Yes.
Yeah, right. Laura's expertise. All right. So what can people do to help monarchs and other pollinators right now? We talked about like planting natives. Mm-hmm. Are there any other like go to, hey, this is what you can do that you normally tell people?
My go-to is always like join a local group. There's all sorts of stuff, bringing awareness is huge because like we said, public awareness is something that drives a lot of things So if we get a whole bunch of calls saying how great our roadsides look with pollinator plants, then we've got a lot more chance of being able to carry that stuff on versus people feeling that we need to mow it. So if you individually want to plant milkweed, nectarine plants in your flower beds or gardens, like we talked about, by maintaining all of this habitat, you're not just creating stuff for monarchs, you're creating it for other pollinators, hummingbirds, bees, all of those things. So you get to watch them too. So that's pretty cool.
I know that we've got at work we always promote seed balls for kids to
Oh,
do.
yeah.
Which are so fun. Guerrilla gardening, just throwing them everywhere, growing flowers. And I know our city, and so I'm sure a lot of other cities have like an environmental management department where our city will like do consultations for like pollinator friendly yards, and every once in a while they give away seeds and things like that.
Yep. And that's Monarch Joint Venture is a really good place to go, like to start if you want to get into something like that. There's a lot of resources on that, and they'll be able to point you in whatever direction you're wanting to go.
Very cool. Very cool.
Fantastic. So last question. What is your favorite pollinator and why?
It doesn't have to be the monarch.
Yeah, you can totally.
Yeah. I think it does have to be the monarch.
Yeah.
I think it does.
I mean, she has one sitting on her desk right now. So
I do indeed. No, I think it does. I think they're classic and they're iconic and nostalgic for people like me that raised them whenever I was younger. I remember, the huge migrations coming through, and before I started working with butterflies, I didn't know that was why I didn't see them anymore, like the population decline. It's also a really great mascot for other pollinators. It's charismatic and it makes it easy to get people on board with efforts that don't only benefit monarchs. They benefit so many other things.
The panda.
As well.
The panda.
It's the total
panda of the pollinator world.
The panda. The panda. All right. Well, Kate, I want to thank you very, very much for being our first official guest on our podcast.
Absolutely.
Yes. So we will definitely, if anybody has any questions, go ahead and ask, and we will be able to send them to Kate and hopefully get some answers. If you have any questions other than what does a monarch caterpillar taste like,
I don't know if
she's
I'm
already on
that one.
She's already on that one. All right. In the meantime, though, like I said, go onto our social media at FTLON or go onto Patreon. Just search for us, For the Love of Nature. And we will talk to you guys next week.
See you next week.
Thank you, guys.
Bye.
Bye.